This Act deals with fairness between the service provider and the person that actually receives the service.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's mostly the service, the one that actually gets the service, that's mentioned here as the one that needs to be protected. So, the fact is, if this law actually has to be fully fair, all the things that applies to the service provider must also apply to the person that actually comes for the service. Otherwise, it would not be a fair law. So the same degree of openness that is expected from the doctor should actually can be expected from the person that comes from the service as well. So it can easily happen that a person comes to you for a service, and in the past, very often, I mean, it would be a quick decision for a doctor to actually help someone. But there are many people who come to your practice that introduce a lot of risk into your practice. For instance, now a lawyer comes to you that deals with medical negligence, and he wants to be one of your patients. Now, would I really accept a person like that into my practice? Because he introduces a lot of risk into my practice. Do I want to see him? I actually find more reasons now not to see people. If I think he's going to introduce too much risk into my practice, I'm actually not going to see him. If I think he's not open enough with me in terms of how we deal fairly with each other, I'm going to find reasons not to see him. What is your thoughts about that?
Okay, well, I think certainly you've made some very important points. I think if a patient doesn't make full disclosure, if a patient doesn't follow a treatment regimen but says he or she does, the physician surely cannot hold me liable for that. If someone comes to you who's got a history going back the year dot of major depressive episodes, but just says, "Doctor, I've only been depressed for the last 2 weeks since my beloved dog Poppy died," you know, you put him on a bit of benzos for short term or whatever. If there's misrepresentation and non-disclosure, as is the case in any contract, certain consequences flow. And certainly inaction for damages, where there's not been appropriate disclosure, where there's been deliberate lies with regard to treatment compliance, that would tend to relieve the practitioner from liability. Sorry, I'll just finish, then I'll come back. The second point, the Act specifically prohibits discrimination. You cannot discriminate against any person. In other words, you can't say, "I'm not prepared to sell you goods. I'm not prepared to render a service," unless it's a generic non-discriminatory approach. So, for example, you might say, "Look, we're having a special offer for all those who are over 60, but you won't supply the goods at the same price to anyone who's under 60. Well, that's permissible discrimination. I think if one has to say, "Look, I'm not prepared to treat any patients who have, you know, under 5'6", for one of a good example, it's got to be a rational discrimination. I may say that whenever I go for medical care, and hopefully I haven't had much, I never have a problem, and I think most of the guys I go to know that what kind of business I do, because I don't think as an attorney one should make it your business to nail professionals unless there's good cause to do so, and if you do, you get known for doing so. But the Act essentially is designed to protect the average South African consumer, and by and large, I think if we are to be honest with ourselves as professional persons, we have a superior bargaining power, we have superior knowledge to the average patient, and hence the patient tends to rely on what is told to them. And let's face it, even though we're now moving to the era of patient-centered treatment, there is this tremendous respect, and justifiably so, for doctors